pump Cheney. He's not even human.
Cheney's like a
yeah. He's just some sort of strange murdering maniac.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, he's not human. I've suspended belief in him having even a human heart. And I'm not worried about him, but I like to do is pray for him, and he find Christ consciousness. And if he does or does not, that's his problem. It's even though if I was Iraqi and as an American, I'm suffering under this perverted man's bloated ego and massive fortune. He's a multi-billionaire, multi-billionaire.
Right. Well, that's all right.
Moral crime to be a
with
billionaire.
All due respect, that might make it possible for us to get back to you've spent a lot of time in Spain, Barcelona, Gaudi, and
I grew up
and
in
also
Barcelona,
you grew up in Barcelona. You speak Spanish like English and all of that and everything. And Cervantes was great, and he said there's two classes of people: haves and have-nots. We never talk about that in any kind of serious term except a throwaway line or something. And how do we define that? And I don't know how else you could define the current situation other than the reification of outdated institutions based upon the everlasting principle that who's got power rules, and who's got power is determined primarily by the people who have a weapon system that give them advantage over another group, like the Plains Indians could not stand up to the European. There was no way they could do that. Or let's say the Palestinians in Jerusalem now cannot stand up to the overwhelming power of a completely supported Zionist Israel or something, and they want to go and bomb a thing over in Iran. It's still just a matter of who's got the power economically or militarily. And look at our bloated military budget and everything that is sacrosanct.
Forget it. There's not even a budget anymore. How come we ever going to catch up with $1 trillion in debt?
How can you say we're not
Reagan pushed us into tremendous debt and with the world empire search, and now we're in this $1 trillion debt, and it's ridiculous.
Trillions.
No, let's get back to reality and
power. Back to reality.
Reality is that we're spiritual beings and that we're eternal.
No, that's okay.
We're energy.
I don't know what that means. What
we are spiritual beings.
What does that mean, spiritual beings? What do you mean?
We are spirit borrowing a body.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
We're just energy incarnate.
Well, everything
we're physicalized human biochemical experiments of the universe.
We can
evolving.
Yeah, we are. And now you're talking something that has a ring of some sort of really scientific validity and so forth to do it. Evolving. We're part of an evolutionary context of evolution in universe that can be understood with nothing spiritual. There's nothing spiritual that has to be included in order to understand the evolution of all of the earth and the universe. And it includes humanity as one part of that, apexing part of that evolution of consciousness in the universe. Doesn't have to have anything about some spirit or anything about spiritual. It can be understood in strictly materialistic terms. I had my DNA done. Did you know that, Frank?
Oh, wonderful.
I had it done, and it's markers. DNA, where did that come from? Watson and Crick is coming to a quickening where we're coming more and more to have an understanding in intellectual terms.
And you trace where, back to Africa?
Well, it was because we all are African. Right. All of humanity is African.
Yeah, man. We're all African-American, man.
And it goes, and Frankie, it's a scientific thing. Me as an individual related to an individual, as I understand it, Spencer Wells, who lived as an individual 60,000 years ago in what is now Abyssinia or Ethiopia.
Well,
that's scientific markers. We have markers that we can trace scientifically with secular understanding of the evolution of the material world that would include us and not have anything to do with anything that you call spiritual. You're just taking spiritual. It's all the good things.
Shh. Please, may I interject?
Yes.
I appreciate it if you just let me get a word in edgewise.
Get a word in edgewise with Craven? Are you crazy? There's no chance. I can't get a word in edgewise.
Well, you know, I want to just explain the fact that obviously we're spiritual beings borrowing a body, and it's not obvious to you. That's okay. But in reality, you know the deal. You're a living, breathing creature. When you stop breathing, that invisible force called life will finish.
Well, that can be understood.
That's energy, right?
No, that's energy. It can be understood in secular terms. It doesn't have to be anything overarching spiritual. That's all I'm saying.
Fine.
It does exist. We can understand it intellectually. We couldn't do it until just yesterday did we have the intellectual understanding of the material world that made it possible for us to begin to wake up intellectually to how we came to be and what the universe is all about. And it doesn't have to be any arching ontology or God or any of the creation stories that they came up with to deal with the self-reflective consciousness that evolved in Homo sapien.
All right, that's exactly what I'm saying in my book, Two Comedies on God, a God in quotation marks. You can buy it at Amazon. It's a comedy on God. This whole thing about religion and God is a joke we play on ourselves.
Religion or the political institution.
Power, real power, is the fact that I may not be mega wealthy and rich as I would like a normal person wants to have tons of money and have all this power to...
Back to Cervantes. We need some definition of terms.
I do have the power because I on a regular basis enjoy hearing laughter. I enjoy hearing thank you.
Yeah.
And when I hear people say thank you to me, or I hear them laugh,
thank you,
as a performer, as an artist, or as a musician.
Yeah, right.
I have a trunk full of memories that makes my life rich.
You and George M. Cohan.
Yeah. So a person who's focused on wealth and money and how and is worried about paying the bills and fronting it, they're a slave.
Most people are slaves.
The economic paradigm.
Most people are and have been slaves or serfs, like to the few who had all the political clout and economic clout throughout all of human history, as far as we can tell, and that we may be approaching a time when there can be a new, but you can't do it just politically. It's almost have to be, we're coming evolutionarily to a transformation in universe.
Right.
Like on the, like punctuated equilibrium.
Well,
the
now
new
is the
relationship
time of contact.
of contact, but not with some other creatures that have been out there or something, but just coming right out of the evolutionary context like we came out of Homo habilis.
Right.
Okay.
Well, yeah, we're
so we know
like
that
blossom,
now.
You know, the chrysalis opens up and then comes a butterfly. Always that,
That's
you know,
true.
and little eggs sprout and the birds use their wings, and human beings too transform from their consciousness and grow into a whole new awareness, like a flower opening up. The Om Mani Padme Om is that behold the jewel of the lotus flower. Our Khan chakra opens up and we are awakened. And to be awakened is something we sort of close off. If I know your deal, my deal, and I use my telepathy, the game's over. There's no game. So we have the veil of ignorance on purpose. But we can't give ourselves permission to open our third eye. We just tap our pineal gland and give ourselves permission and open it up. And we open up and activate all our glands and all of our organisms unconsciously. A trillion cells or 50 trillion cells.
No, 100. It's about,
working in harmony.
It's about 100 trillion cells in a human organism. Probably something like 90% of those are bacteria in the gut. But 100 trillion cells, every cell matters. They all interrelate with one another. A miracle of DNA. Every cell is related to every other. The pancreas to the heart to the head to everything. And it works as a system.
And the idea of cloning has proven that they replicate each other. And they're like a hologram of each other. And they're within each other. And each, you can take one cell and we can grow our limbs back. Even in this photography, a person who's missing his hand has the whole hand, the memory, cellular memory there. And we will be doing this when we're ready. And we're ready when we give ourselves permission and are ready to do this.
No, we're going to be ready in terms of understanding evolution. We couldn't have done that in the 15th century. We couldn't have done it in the 16th century. We couldn't have done it in the 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th century.
This is why we're witnessing. That's why 1970 is year one.
I think so. I believe that. I don't know. The case could be made for that.
Next 500 years from now, next 1,000 years from now.
Yeah, well, Carl Sagan said we get to civilization one along about 40 years from now. Michio Kaku's string theory and that. But isn't it amazing to think that we may live, we were born into the generation, and particularly the youth coming along, we're born into the defining generation of an evolutionary process 200,000 years old, that is coming to a time of qualitative, like a gestation in a human being is 9 months. It's not 10 months, it's not 8 months, it's not 7.5, it's 9, 22 in an elephant. We've come to a time of not just a quantitative change where there's a political change, you get a tax rate or something like that they argue and are fighting over with weapons that could kill the whole species, or they have ability to liberate in a way that never has been possible throughout all of human history and its existence. Okay.
Thank you, God.
Yeah, we've transcended material scarcity. That to have been born into that defining generation is an incredible privilege and also a pain The Chinese warn against being born into interesting times, because these are the most interesting time to have been the generation if we're at that point of qualitative transformation, liberation, the end time of a long process. That's all I'm saying. So all of your things that you're saying are there. But listen, we're off on a lot of different things. I still think it'd be good to get some definition of what Mr. Cervantes meant by a have and a have-not, and what are the percentages of the world population within an ecological order that could be realistically seen at the level of capability as a have. What do we mean by that? What do we mean by a transcending scarcity? But that's another issue. You know.
Yeah. Well,
but anyway,
let's look at yesterday's paper right away, right here in the opening page, just for fun. Here, they poke fun at Tiger Woods with this guy, and his wife jumps ships to another ship and says, "Oh yes, his is longer," referring to the sexual organ, and obviously he's got a bigger yacht. So this is the guy who has a lot. Tiger Woods, again, like Obama, this pseudo-black man who's forgotten 400 years of chains and slavery and his people, and like Oprah Winfrey, a shameful billionaire who doesn't care but amasses massive wealth, and meanwhile Mumia's in jail, and people are being arrested, especially blacks, in a slave labor prison.
I know, stop and
we're in a horrendous situation of penal code reform that needs to be reformed. Because we're a slave labor plantation situation.
Yeah, we are. It's like a
We're
plantation.
suffering chemtrails. What is that? And we're suffering fake foods and fake medicines. And then an age-old herb and weed. Now, all kinds of weeds are beautiful and healing, and they grow around different people's houses, offering Mother Nature gives us what we need, and we can forage and eat them. And what do? They arrest people, and they want you to take herbicides. And we're in a society dictated by the big pharma lobbies and about 17 corporations that don't pay taxes. They're subsidized. So these are criminal traders to America that outsource their jobs, don't pay taxes, and enjoy school shootings on a regular basis.
Keep your mind on the camera. You're a movie producer and an actor.
People to be aware that we live with a gangster government. And we're talking to the general public at large that the goon squads and the police and the military are pawns of this pseudo president and government that is skirting the responsibility as humans in helping society.
Yeah, if we were to make a thing where, do you think if we're going to make it, as they say, to where we're not going to take the obvious destiny of stopping consciousness in universe, if that's possible, that it would be a thing. Do you think we could have an understanding where
they don't want critical thinking though in schools? This country, like as I said, I grew up in Spain, so I speak different languages, and so does South Africa. Most Europeans speak 4 or 5 languages. Here they don't want they even Djibouti, or your friend Nita Renfrew, she told me, they should obviously we don't want 34 million Hispanic households speaking fluent Spanish or Americans fluent in their language.
But what I'm going to get, and then we want to hear you play your guitar.
No, you don't have to play.
I want you to play. I want you. Oh, okay. No, but do you think it would be that if we get to a situation where there's always been a dialectic, in order for one group to win, the other one has to lose? That's part of it. You win. And then they have political.
We live in a win-win situation. That's the new growth of the divine feminine.
Now, what I'm trying to get to you.
That's what Buckminster Fuller was talking about.
All right, Bucky Fuller did talk this way more than you are. And what I'm saying is you're giving an indictment, because you could look at every single institution that exists in the world, and they're all out of date in terms of the future. What the future allows and the future requires. They require a liberated humanity that can be concerned with the arts and with the things that really matter, rather than keeping track of debt ratios and all the rest of the kind of thing they do out of history, because there's never enough. So do you think we could have a system, an operating manual for Spaceship Earth that takes into account the context that is positively now available to us where it never has been, so that we could have something that would be not only liberating of the masses of the people and the ecology within an ecological order, but also be included those who are responsible for the outdated institutions like our political leadership, so that everybody wins. You don't have to tear anybody down. You don't have to kill Louis XVI in order to make a revolution. Do you understand what I'm saying? That we may be able to have something that would include everybody, including the leaders of the political order that we call the establishment, or they claim political and evolutionary leadership in the world. So you could include the bad guys, including all the bad guys
sure.
that you're doing an indictment
I don't want to
of.
have them suffer their own medicine and be